Hey guys, thank y'all so much for joining us online. My name is Daniel, and we are just so excited that it's summertime, but school's coming back. And so if you're looking for ways to get plugged in, maybe get into a new routine, meet some new people as, like I said, school's starting back and work's picking back up after the summer months. Guys, I really encourage you to get our newsletter. It has everything from our small groups coming up to student events, into what we're doing on Sunday mornings. So if you're not getting our newsletter, send us a message on whatever social platform you're watching this on, or send us an email at onechurchhartsville@gmail.com. And guys, just thank you so much for joining us online today. Hope you enjoy the rest of this message.
Don't you hate it when you're trying to get in a door that you haven't been in for a while and you can't remember which key it is? I've got a rule for you. This may not apply to your life, but I'm telling you, in my life, this happens every time. It seems like it would be impossible, like the probability of it happening every time is just off the charts low. But the rule of my life has been this, is that when you're trying to find a key for a door and you're not sure which key it is, it will always be the very last key that you try. I don't know how that works. You would think just by chances, like sometimes it would be the first one I try, but it's always the last key I try. I was thinking about that this week. There's some things as a culture that we're trying to fix, some doors we're trying to open, and one of those is the tension between races, the tension over segregation, the tension that comes from slavery from over a century ago, the tension that comes from divisions, even in the church over theological things. But these tensions that rise up and separate us, we still have not found the key to open that door and to bring racial reconciliation in our nation. Now, we've made a lot of progress. Man, our schools have been integrated for the most part. Our workplaces have been integrated. In fact, almost everything's been integrated. And it's like you tried all these keys and none of them fit the door. And even though we've done very good things in our school, as we've desegregated those schools and we've desegregated workplaces, and we're doing everything we can, it seems like, maybe probably not everything we can, but it seems like we're making progress in integrating so many of these areas of our lives. And we wonder that even though I've tried all these keys, it seems like it hasn't opened the door to the healing that we know should be out there. Well, I want to throw out an idea to you that maybe there's one key left. Because the rule is it's always the last key. There's one key left, one thing we haven't tried to bring about that healing. And I believe that is that we desegregate our churches. Because I believe that God's called the church to be a picture of what the world can be and to bring healing to the world through the teachings of Jesus, yes, but also through the living out of the principles and the ethics that Jesus described. And when the church lives those out, that we bring healing to those. It was the church that was the driving force, that was the end of slavery. But somehow the church has become the last place that we're still segregated. Sunday mornings, we're more segregated, y'all know, I've heard that before, than any other time of the week. And so maybe it's time that we try the last key to the door. And maybe the church being desegregated, being integrated, or at least doing what we can, will be the key that brings healing. Because that's sort of what Scripture teaches. And man, we tried all the other keys. So even if you're not a believer, it's worth a shot, right? It's worth a shot. Here's what Jesus said when he was the night before he was crucified. This is a passage we read a lot. And Jesus said this, and it's in the book of John chapter 13, verse 34. He said, "As a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another." Love one another is what Jesus said is the central teaching of the Jesus movement. Now, we're in this church hurt series, and we've got to face up to the fact that our culture has sort of rejected the church. That our culture is in the process of saying the church really is not influential. That the Jesus families are so corrupt that they're not going to be a part of our lives, our culture is saying. And we can blame the culture all we want to, but maybe the place we should start is this. Maybe the reason that the culture is rejecting the church is because the church has rejected the central teaching of Jesus, which is that we love one another. Now, we're good at looking at people as others. We see other races. We see other political parties. We see people that are from the other side of the track. And our churches have organized around looking at each other as the other. And so whenever there's churches for other people, whether based on skin color, there's churches for other people, man, we've gotten arguments over the most minor theological things in the church. I mean, not me personally, but over the last 200 years, and we make another denomination so that there's a other church for those people, and there's a other church for those people, and there's an other church for the people on the other side of the track. And Jesus didn't call us to look at each other as others. He called us to love one another. And if we love one another, it's so strange, is that the other, while retaining their otherness, it doesn't mean they become the same as us, and it doesn't mean we become the same as them. While retaining their differences, their otherness, they become one. That's the power of the one another movement that Jesus taught. And if we're going to go from an other mindset, from an other culture to a one another type family, it's going to require us to do something other than what we've been doing. In the book of Galatians, Paul pushes down on this a little bit. And he said, he wrote in Galatians chapter 3, he said before, in verse 23, before the coming of this faith. That's so important for us to get, because many of us have grown up in a culture that's sort of Christian. There's churches on every block. And again, our culture is in the process of rejecting Christianity. And I think it's because the church, the Jesus people, have neglected the central teaching of the Jesus movement, which is to love one another, even if they are other than you. So Paul said before the coming of this faith, things were different. He said before the Jesus movement really took root in your life, things were different. He said before the coming of this faith, we were held in custody under the law, locked up until faith that was to come would be revealed. Now, what he was talking about was there was a Jewish group, Gentile group divide. But we can look at it this. We've all divided into our tribes. It's sort of similar. We've divided into our middle-class white tribe, our upper-class white tribe, our other side of the tracks white tribe, our black churches tribe, our Democratic tribe, our Republican tribe, our work tribe, our neighborhood tribe, our youth baseball team tribe. And that's my people. And everybody else falls into the category of other. And what happens is when people fall into the category of other, no matter how good your intentions are, you begin to look at them as slightly less human than you because they're the others. No matter what you say, no matter what I say, when we begin to see people as other in their categories, we begin to look at them as slightly less belonging, less worthy of belonging than we are. He goes on. He says, so the law was our guardian until Christ came, that we might be justified by faith. That's going to be an important word, is this faith is going to kickstart something new that's going to unite us and help us go from other thinking to one another family. He says this faith is the thing. Now that faith has come, we are no longer under a guardian. In other words, this old way is gone. The old system should be gone. He goes on to say, so in Christ Jesus, you are all children of God. All children of God. That means that who you used to think of people as being in the other camp, whether it's because their skin was another color, or because they belonged to an other political party, or because they had an other kind of job, or because they're from the other side of the tracks, whichever side of the tracks you're on. He says, now, because of this faith, we are all one family, which enables us to go from other thinking to one another living. He goes on, and we'll finish with this. He says, are all children of God through faith, for all of you were baptized into Jesus Christ and have clothed yourself with Christ. Now, that may seem like a minor word, the clothed. But back then, just like today, clothes differentiated who belonged to your group and who belonged to the other group. You know, there were different styles of clothes that indicated your religion. And today, like, you may be sitting next to somebody on in a restaurant or in church or anywhere else, and if you're a upper class white collar job and you got your button up in khakis and a sports coat, and the person beside you has sort of old jeans and a hoodie, and they got the hood pulled over their head, like both of you are looking at each other like they're other, like they're from the other tribe. Well, Paul says in faith, through this faith in Jesus, that the guy or the girl with the button up dress shirt and the guy or the girl with the old jeans and the hoodie that has the hood pulled over his head now no longer need to look at each other as other, but now need to think of each other as one another, because we're commanded to love one another, serve one another, forgive one another, think of one another ahead of ourselves. And if the church, I am convinced, if the church, as the key that it seems like has not been tried in the desegregation movement, if the church would jump on board with this and do what it takes to integrate ourselves and show the world what not other thinking looks like, but what one another living looks like, and we were to try the one key, it seems, that has not been tried in the quest to find racial reconciliation and peace in our country, I believe it is the key that actually opens the door. But listen, I bet many of you will be very excited and say, yes, sign me up for that. Sign me up for trying the last key. It's worthy of whatever it takes. It's worthy of that. I want our nation, I want our town, I want our churches to get out of the other thinking, and I want us to begin to get into one another type of living. But I want you to hear what I said earlier, and I want you to pay attention to the last part. If we're going to change from other thinking to one another living, it's going to require us to do something other than what we've been doing. It means that what most of us have been doing is we've been having good intentions. I'll say this about the churches. I'm not trying to put down our churches, because I bet most churches are not they're not blatantly racist. We're not saying, man, we don't want people of other skin colors being here. We're just, listen to this, we're just satisfied with segregation. It's not that we're for it. And if you were to survey us in our churches and say, hey, are you racist and don't want people of the other skin color here? The answers almost across the board would be no, with a few exceptions. And with those few exceptions that would say we don't want people of another color here, I wish they would close their doors or at least take the name church off of there and have nothing to do with Jesus, because they're ruining the reputation of the one who started the one another movement. But I bet most of our churches would say, no, we're against racism. We would welcome people with open arms. We would welcome people with open arms. But we're satisfied, we're comfortable in our segregation, because to do something different would mean that we have to do something different. And we're comfortable where we're at. But guys, we're like a frog that's slowly boiling and we don't even realize that we're about to die. And if we stay and continue to do what we do, and while we're not blatantly racist, and while we say we would welcome people into our churches, we're satisfied being segregated. Now, it's not just racial lines. It could be along political lines. There are many churches where you don't put this on the sign, but it's like Republicans only welcome. Democrats only welcome. There are many churches that they don't mean this. They don't mean it on purpose, but just over the years, it's become, this is a church for wealthy people. This is a church for this kind of people or that kind of people. And while in our minds, we know that we would welcome those people, we say that we would welcome those people, we've just become satisfied. It's like we're comfortable being segregated. And man, if you're in a white church, you're like, man, if 20 African-American people showed up, we'd be good with that. But we're just not going to do anything to get there. We're not going to work to see things change. Here's the challenge to us. If you think that the Jesus movement is important and that the health of the church is the key to unlocking the potential of our culture and the potential of our future, and that what the church does or doesn't do is so vitally important that it is worth effort. And we want to see healing along all those dividing lines. And the one key left untried is the church, which, like the rule goes, that means it's probably the key that can unlock a future that's better. Then we've got to make up our minds that we are willing to do something different. So here's what I want to ask you to do. I want to ask you to think, who is it? What's the category of people that you think of as the other? Skin color? Oh, it's not skin color, right? Maybe it's not skin color. I think our church, man, we made from day one, we've said so much that we want to be integrated. That I bet there's very few people involved in our church that, probably nobody that would say I want our church to be divided. Nobody would say that by racial lines. Maybe it's political lines. Maybe it's the way somebody dresses. Maybe like, I can't stand those wealthy people. I can't stand somebody that looks like they're not wealthy. I don't like to be around those people. I get it that we don't like to be around people that are different than us. That's our sin nature. Everybody's like that. We tend to look at people that aren't like us as less than us. That's not unique to you or to me. That's a human characteristic. That's something that we all do in our flesh, in our old nature. But our new nature in Jesus sees people and realizes that even if they look like they belong to the other, God has called them to be a part of the one another movement. And that I'm called to love them. And listen, I'm especially called to love people that look differently than me. Now, why is that? Because it shows off the goodness of who God is. And the world can begin to see the healing that can happen through the good news of Jesus when it looks at the church and sees a healthy family of people that looks like our community. Now, we shouldn't be fake either. We shouldn't manipulate people. We should never have a token wealthy person because we're a church full of poor people. And we have that token wealthy person so we can say that we're integrated. Or we have the token Hispanic or black or white or whatever. We have the token Democrat that we let get up and say a prayer every once in a while. No token, people. This is not manipulation. This is a one another project that Jesus has called us to step into where we love one another. But you don't have problems loving people that are like you. So I don't need to preach about that. But what we do need to preach about is this. It's going to take effort and intentionality to love people that the world would look at as an other category and bring them into the one another movement that Jesus has called us to. So here's your takeaway. Today or this week, can you start making an effort when you see somebody that your flesh, your old way of thinking tells you is an other category? It's the white button-up shirt. It's the hoodie. It's the skin color. It's the Democrat. It's the Republican. It's the Methodist. It's the Episcopal. It's the Catholic. It's the Mormon. It's the atheist. It's the whatever. That your flesh tells you that's the other, so you need to be on your guard. Can you start training your mind to tell your old way of thinking, no. I no longer live in an other world. I live in a one another world because of what Jesus did for us on the cross. So I am actually going to work harder to love people that the world will look at as other than I am to love people that look like me, because that comes naturally. And people that are in my comfort zone, because that comes naturally. And would you commit today, Jesus follower, to do your part, to grab a hold of that last key for the sake of the next generation, for the sake of the world, for the sake of the world that needs the message of the church, but a culture that's rejecting the church because, well, we've rejected the teachings of Jesus and we've let the world down because we've continued to be satisfied in creating Jesus families that were all about people like us rather than loving one another like Jesus said and like Paul said. And would you this week start to retrain your mind, and when you see somebody who belongs to the other category, can you go put your arm around them? Can you invite them to sit next to you in church? Can you talk to them at work? Can you invite them out to eat lunch? Now, maybe you're in the majority category, and maybe it's a church full of green people, and you're welcoming in a few blue people. Well, green people, welcome the few blue people in because, they're stepping out on faith to show up. Or maybe you're part of the minority. But minority people, we need your help. If I'm in the minority, we can build bridges too. To the other people. And we're all called to not even meet in the middle, but go meet people where they're at and love the other people because the world is desperate for it. And listen, the church has hurt itself and hurt people so much by continuing to be segregated and divided along racial, economic, theological, all these points we've divided and separated and began. We've actually accelerated the other way of thinking instead of the one another way of living. And it's going to take so much work to change that. But y'all, I'm in. I'm all in. Wouldn't it be exciting to know that you are part of the solution? You have found out that this is the last untried key, and it's the one we should have tried first. And I'm a part of this movement. And I want to do my part. And guys, if you're part of the Jesus movement, you hold the key in your hand. And the key to showing our culture that the church has not rejected the central teaching of Jesus, which is to love one another, is for us to try really, really, really hard to focus our love on people that our flesh and our old way of thinking would say belong to the other category. I want to challenge you to do that this week. I want to challenge our church overall to keep that mindset that's so important. But guys, the bottom line is the church is made up of people. So if the key is going to be turned, it comes down to you and to me. So let's love the blue-haired people. If you're conservative, let's love the guy with the cowboy hat and the big old belt buckle. If you're on the other side of it, whatever it means, the black, the white, the Hispanic, whoever it is that thinks maybe they even feel like the other, or maybe it just appears they're the minority in our group, or they're in the other category. Let's run to them, church, and let's turn the key to a future that's better. All we're doing is following the central teachings of Jesus. See you next week. Church Hurt series continues. If we can serve you in any way, please message us, email us, let us know how we can pray for you, serve you, or maybe help you to do this. Maybe you have a question about how you can connect with people at work or at church or anywhere else. We'll do everything we can to help you because this movement, the Jesus thing, the one another movement, is definitely worth any cost we got to pay. We'll see you next week.